Hi there, guys. Look, I'll be quite brief on this one. I just wanted to highlight this, the outcome of Henry Nowak's killer. I'm not going to say his name. I'm not going to put his photo on here. I'm not going to do anything. This is not about him. This is about Henry and his family. But the good news is he was found guilty of murder and sentenced to the maximum of a life sentence, serving a minimum of 21 years. Now, this could not be found any other way. Before I go on, I want to apologise because I did give misinformation. And I give the misinformation because this was the story I read from, I think it was the Daily Mirror or the Daily Mail. I can't remember which one it was. The misinformation I gave was stating that this was from December of 2023. I was wrong. It was, in fact, the 3rd of December 2025 when this incident took place. So I apologise for that. I just want to set the record straight. In my last video, I said I was perplexed and how the criminal class is emboldened and they called the police themselves. I didn't know which one it was. But upon investigation, it was his brother who called the police, claiming that they had been racially assaulted by a white man. So I'm going to put that out there. I'm going to play the video of Henry's family coming out and giving an interview after the court case, because I think it's important. And why it's important is because I want you to really focus on the heartache that the family is going through. It is quite obvious to see. I touched on this point yesterday in my last video, that it's one life that shouldn't be lost, but it's the knock-on effect and the people affected by the loss of said life. That's why it is important. And that's why I want to play this video. And one awful ordeal. I just cannot imagine what you were going through, and I am deeply sorry and my deepest sympathies and condolences.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Nowak. I am Henry Nowak's father. To my left is my daughter Olivia Nowak, Henry's older sister, and to her left is Lucy Ross, Henry Nowak's mother. The jury confirmed what we've always known. Henry's life was taken from him unlawfully, violently, and without justification. Henry was 18 years old. He was kind, ambitious, loved and full of promise. He had his whole life ahead of him, a degree to finish, places to see, and a future to build. That future was stolen from him, and no verdict or sentence will ever give it back. Henry did nothing wrong. He was one of the kindest, friendliest, and most inclusive people you could ever hope to meet. He was amazing in every way. On the 3rd of December last year, Henry was walking home from a night out with his university football teammates when he encountered Kiran Kaur, a man openly carrying a large knife on the streets of Britain. That knife was used to take Henry's life. He should have been safe walking home. Instead, he became another young life lost to the brutal reality of knife crime in this country. Henry had been stabbed multiple times, and as his chest filled with blood, he tried to escape. He was chased, abused, and filmed by Kiran Kaur and others. When police arrived, Henry was lying on the floor, barely able to sit up and plainly in severe medical distress. With his final words, he told officers that he could not breathe. He told them he had been stabbed. In fact, Henry told officers that he could not breathe 9 times. He told them he had been stabbed 4 times. The response from one officer was, "I don't think you have, mate." The police have said they were misled by the murderer and that the scene when they arrived was complex. Unfortunately, it seems to us the truth is much simpler. The police were told by our son himself and by a member of the public who called 999 that they heard someone shout that they had been stabbed. But the police did not believe them. Henry was pulled across the gravel, his hands forced behind his back, and he was placed in handcuffs. Instead of being treated as a dying victim, police formally arrested Henry for assault and read him his rights. That was the last thing he heard. Henry did not die with dignity. He did not die with the care he deserved. He lost consciousness before anyone believed him. Let me be absolutely clear. We hold Vikram Digwa solely and 100% responsible for the brutal murder of our son. But Henry should not have died on the streets of Southampton in police custody. The way he was treated was inhumane and degrading. His murderer, however, was afforded decency. He was believed. He was not handcuffed when arrested. He was not handcuffed when transported to the police station. As far as we understand, he was never handcuffed at all. And, as Vikram Digwa himself told the court, whilst under arrest for Henry's murder, police even took him to the kitchen so he could choose his food. The contrast is unbearable. We believe the officers involved remain on duty, although we understand some may have since resigned. One was allowed to leave the force before she had given an account to the Independent Office of Police Conduct of what happened that evening. The IOPC investigation remains ongoing. Whilst we await its final report, we are calling on the Home Secretary to ensure that the IOPC has the resources, authority and independence it needs to conduct a full, fearless and transparent investigation. Our family should not have to fight for the truth anymore. Despite the shocking actions of the police on that fatal night, the murder investigation was very different. We would like to express our heartfelt gratitude to Senior Investigating Officer DCI Rebecca Bartholomew, the Serious Crime Team, and particular Officer in the case Claire Proctor. We would also like to thank our incredible family liaison officers Sarah Page and Trudy May for their diligence, professionalism and compassion throughout this investigation. We would also like to thank the CPS as well as Nick Lobenberg KC and Neil King for their outstanding advocacy skills in prosecuting this case. In our darkest period of our lives, knowing that people were fighting tirelessly for Henry gave us strength. They secured justice for our son, and for that, our family will be forever grateful. For us, there is no closure. There is no moment where the pain stops. There is no moment where the Henry-shaped hole in our family is filled. We will carry this grief every single day for the rest of our lives. But today matters. Today, Henry was believed. The truth has been recognized. Today, justice, in the eyes of the law, has been served. But justice alone is not enough. We want to use Henry's heartbreaking story to make change for the better. We do not want his death to be used to create further division, hatred, or tension. We want his story to make our streets safer for everyone. That is why we are calling on the government to treat knife crime as the national emergency that it is. We need real solutions. We need investment in prevention. We need stronger action on the sale, the ownership, and carrying of all knives. And as this case so painfully demonstrates, we need common sense applied to our laws. This doesn't mean knee-jerk reactions. This doesn't mean going to extremes. It just means a common sense approach to law and order. As the case C for the prosecution summed up in court, this is not a case about Sikhism. This is not a case about racism. This is a case about murder. People should not be able to walk openly through the streets of Britain carrying a 21-centimetre blade. As a family, we will not let this go. No other family should experience the heartbreak and horror of losing a child to knife crime. Finally, I want Henry to know, wherever he is, we are so proud of him and we love him beyond words. Thank you.
Now, I've made some notes down here, and it's heartbreaking when you think about it. You know, it was quite obvious that Henry Nowak was in distress. And I've just listened to his father there, and Henry has stated 9 times that he cannot breathe. He had stated he had been stabbed 4 times. And it was the police officer you heard on the recording when Henry claimed he'd been stabbed, and the officer said, "I don't think you have, mate." A lot of differences as well is, I'm reading reports, and Henry was handcuffed and arrested, dragged across gravel. This boy could barely stand, and he was abused by the police officers. And I'm going to state it exactly like that. He was abused by the police officers. Conversely, when it come to the killer, by all accounts, they did not even handcuff him. And when they got to the police station, they let him go into the kitchen to choose his food. Little things like that really, really piss me off. And we also know that the murderer's mother has also been found guilty of assisting an offender. Upon looking into that, that carries a maximum sentence of 10 years. So I really hope that gets handed down. I really, really do. And that sentencing date is set for the 17th of July, 2026. So I'm hoping they hand down the maximum sentence for that, because we need to make an example of these people. We need to start reining law back in. And Henry's father touched on a good point about getting onto the government to ban knives. We don't even stop and search anymore for knives. Now, even when we did stop and search, there were still stabbings. But you have to realise, you have to understand, the police have to understand that since they stop and search because of racism, then knife crime has gone through the roof. So the police need to ask, what is more important, getting called a racist or stopping people getting attacked and killed? Those are your choices, because we need policing back. We need policing to be what policing is meant to be. Simple as that. And then fewer and fewer families like this have to suffer. It's sickening. It has to stop.